Had to put on their windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer, and why can't for the longest time Delaware had the highest cancer rate in the nation.
That was 2022, folks. Joe Biden, back then, and for 4 years, we watched his obvious mental decline. But now we know there was even more behind the screen, behind the curtain, a developing health crisis that had to be hidden from the public for years. And I, for one, believe this will go down as one of the biggest political cover-ups. And again, I'm not talking about Joe's dementia or Alzheimer's or whatever he has mentally, because we know the decline is there. No. Now we're talking about cancer. The liberal stenographers in the lamestream media, you know, the fake news, along with the propagandists that work in the Democrat Party. And I would say the inner circle of Joe, his wife, his chief of staff, all of them, they covered up a diagnosis involving an aggressive form of prostate cancer that is now metastasized into his bones. How's that possible? They're telling us they just found out about it. No. This is the man, any man or woman, who becomes the president of the United States has access to the best, most elite medical professionals out there. And you're telling me you just now caught his prostate. I don't believe this garbage. No. I know it's a tough pill for the sheeple to swallow. Okay, we knew he was incompetent even without the dementia. But now add cancer on top of it. This was the guy making the call for all of us, 335 million Americans for 4 years? President Trump, being the man he is, offers his sympathies to the family, though. Melania and I are saddened to hear about Joe Biden's recent medical diagnosis. We extend our warmest and best wishes to Jill and the family. We wish Joe a fast and successful recovery. Meantime, medical professionals agree there is no way in hell this horrible disease just popped up out of the blue. A top oncologist who once worked for Biden saying today that Joe must have had the prostate cancer, quote, long before Sunday's public announcement. He suggests Biden might have had it for almost a decade. What? Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel, who helped craft the Obama-era Affordable Care Act, says it is highly likely that Biden had cancer while he was president of the United States. Our VP, J.D. Vance, being sympathetic. However, he's also highly critical of the blatant, extremely dangerous decision to hide this from us forever. Watch this.
We wish the best for the former president's health. And, it sounds pretty serious, but hopefully he makes the right recovery. Like I will say, whether the right time to have this conversation is now or at some point in the future, we really do need to be honest about whether the former president was capable of doing the job. And that's no, that you can separate the desire for him to have the right health outcome with the recognition that whether it was doctors or whether there were staffers around the former president, I don't think he was able to do a good job for the American people. And that's not politics. That's not because I disagreed with him on policy. That's because I don't think that he was in good enough health. In some ways, I blame him less than I blame the people around him. And why didn't the American people have a better sense of his health picture? Why didn't the American people have more accurate information about what he was actually dealing with? This is serious stuff. And this is the guy who carries around the nuclear football for the world's largest nuclear arsenal. This is not child's play, and we can pray for good health, but also recognize that if you're not in good enough health to do the job, you shouldn't be doing the job.
We got to change the rules, folks. If you're going to be commander-in-chief, you've got to have full medical checkups constantly. And I'm sorry, I know we have HIPAA rules for all of us private citizens, but when you're a POTUS, I think that every 30 days you get checked out and it's made public. So we know if the guy that's got his finger on the nukes is mentally and physically capable of doing the damn job. How about that? That's not too much to ask. This cancer diagnosis is the second health bombshell tied to JoJo, of course. On Saturday, Axios published a complete audio recording of Biden's interview with special counsel Robert Hur as part of the probe into Joe's handling of classified documents. The tapes, recorded over a 2-day period back in October of 2023, reveal Biden struggling to recall major things about his life, like when he was VP, when his beautiful son Beau died, This is why Hur said he couldn't stand trial for him stealing the documents because he had lost his marbles. Yet, he remained commander-in-chief from this interview back in 2023 until January of this year. Think about that.
I hadn't walked away from the idea that I might run for office again. So if I ran again, I'd be running for president. And so what was happening though, what month did Bo die? May 30th, 2015. Was it 2015 he died?
2015.
I think it's 2015.
I'm not sure the months are, but I think that was.
Yeah.
That's right, Mr. President.
And what's happened in the meantime is that Trump gets elected in November of 2017? 2016. All right. So, why did I have 2017 here?
That's when you left office, January of 2017.
Yeah, okay. But that's when Trump gets sworn in, then,
Right.
January.
Right. Correct.
Okay, yeah.
Folks, do you see what they did to us? How they lied to us about the competency of our commander-in-chief? Joining us now for more expertise into Biden's medical diagnosis. This, I don't know if it's a rare, but it's a prostate cancer that sounds like it's very progressive in him right now. And so I don't know what the diagnosis will be. But here's the key. More importantly, how was something like this missed, or can you not miss something like this? Just like the dementia. I highly doubt it. This was covered up from the top down through the Democrat Party. He operates the Sperling Prostate Center, Dr. Dan Sperling, on Real America for the first time. Doc, thank you for joining us. Describe the prostate cancer that Joe was diagnosed with, and then if you would, go into some detail about, I hear now it's metastasized into his bones, and for that to occur, Doc, how long, on average, would you have to have something like this? Give me those two details.
Thanks for having me, Dan. This is the type of prostate cancer. It's called a Gleason 9 tumor. It would have been there for years. This is not the type of prostate cancer that's typically missed. It's detected far in advance before it does anything in terms of spreading to bone or advancing to this degree. So this is something that they would have known about for many years. They would have seen on the PSA testing, MRIs, and would have been well prepared to treat him before it progressed to this degree. So they must have known about it.
Wow. Okay. And so you had it for years, then for it to metastasize, that even takes a while. That's not like a month or 6 months. That can be a year or a couple of years for it to then get into the bones, right? So add up, you had the tumor growing, and then it goes into the bones. You're talking 2, 3, 4 years. My brother died of cancer at 39 years old. I forget what type of cancer it was, but it spread into his bones. He had 2 or 3 major tumors, and they figured it was there for at least a year and a half, 2 years before it was detected, but he had it for a couple years. And then he died about a year after the diagnosis. Actually, it was 9 months after the diagnosis. So I'm familiar with this happening. How can this, if you're fighting that cancer, and let me back up, what kind of treatment? Let's say 2 years ago they told him he had this. What kind of treatment would you be doing? And can the treatment and the cancer then also affect if you have dementia or Alzheimer's? Because we saw the cognitive decline get worse over 4 years.
So they could have done something like surgery or radiation where they treat the whole prostate gland and even brought it to a cure if they caught it early enough. But if they attempted to use radiation, they would have used something called androgen deprivation therapy, where they block testosterone. And this type of treatment does cause a lot of confusion, changes mood. It would definitely have had an impact on his cognition, his awareness, like kind of what we've seen. So there's absolutely reason to believe that type of treatment could have been done.
The whispering, the yelling and getting mad, the shuffling and the whatever. So that could be the Alzheimer's or dementia, whichever the cognitive thing is he has. They won't tell us, of course. That plus the cancer explains what we saw. The stumbling, the mumbling, the anger, the confusion. Which way do I go? Where was I in my thought? Oh, shoot, forget it. All that combined is what we witnessed for 4 years.
Absolutely. This is something that they likely could have been aware of and were treating for years. And that treatment for radiation combining with hormone treatment would absolutely have impacted his awareness, if he already had Alzheimer's or some other dementia, would significantly exacerbate and worsen his symptoms.
Now, Doc, I know you do prostates, but you're still a medical doctor. You run your own center. You're a bright guy. You wouldn't be where you're at if you weren't a bright guy. Put the cancer aside. You watched for 4 years. I'm sure you're somewhat politically involved, owning your own business. What do you make of the cognitive side of Joe, from your professional medical opinion, watching the 4 years?
It was extremely concerning and worrisome. I mean, that type of cognitive impairment, that type of dementia, there was obviously some dementia going on, either a combination of Parkinson's or Alzheimer's. That is not something you typically see in terms of someone in public office, let alone the presidency. So I was highly concerned from my perspective medically.
Yeah.
And it was just very alarming.
And obviously, as an American citizen, you're concerned because you're like, wait a minute, this is the guy with his finger on the nukes. This is the guy that decides our fate as a collective. This is the guy that was setting policy for our economy, for our military. I could keep going on and on. And we saw it was a rough 4 years. Let me end with this, Doc. I know that people are being very optimistic, and that's good. Again, I don't feel like the conservative side of things in this country ever wish ill will upon people, especially our political enemies. I'm not going to wish ill will upon President Joe Biden, even though some lunatics on the left wish President Trump was dead. But what is the diagnosis? Can something like this at his age of 80, 3, and then having the cognitive issues, can someone like this recover from this? Because they said it was, and again, I don't know what stage, but it was a high stage of this cancer. And obviously if it metastasizes, that's getting worse. So can this be cured?
No, at this stage, it wouldn't be cured. They would just manage it and try to give him more years, but it's a very dire prognosis.
Okay.
It's a very difficult disease to treat at this point.
Dr. Dan Sperling of the Sperling Prostate Center, thank you for your insight and your expertise. Appreciate you for coming on.
For all our viewers asking where One America News is heading in the future, we would like to introduce you to OAN Live. OAN Live is the best way to stay up to date on all of the hard-hitting, straight-shooting, national and international headlines. And the best part is, OAN Live is only $4.99 per month. All the credible, honest, unbiased reporting One America News offers at a fraction of the cost of cable. Just go to OANN.com to easily sign up for OAN Live and stay informed.